Welcome back everyone, Illumineer Franz here with another reveal roundup. Today we will go over the 5 latest reveals, which are Gantu, Aladdin, Scar, the Wardrobe, and White Rabbit's Pocket Watch. On March 13th, the official Lorcana Twitter brought us Gantu, Galactic Federation Captain. He is an 8 cost, 6 attack, and 6 defense steel character with 2 lore. Boasting his fists and a game-changing ability, Under Arrest. This ability prevents all characters of 2 or less costs from challenging your characters while he is on the field. Those of you who like to duel may be familiar with this type of ability being referred to as a Floodgate. Floodgates typically prevent one or both players from performing specific game actions. In this case, only the opponent is prevented from challenging, which is a great thing. Your opponent's cards are under arrest, but your cards on Gantu's side are walking the streets free. Thematically speaking, the Lilo and Stitch canon perfectly match up to how these cards will play in the game. As we know, Rockstar Stitch incentivizes the player to deploy as many 2 cost or less cards onto the field to draw a card as you can. This represents the other experiments Lilo and Stitch hunt down in the TV show, while Gantu locks down those same experiments since he's tasked with capturing Stitch in the movie. Another interesting fact to mention is that Luis Huerta returns for another incredible illustration. Not only that, but this is the second supposed legendary card drawn by the man himself. Time will tell to see if this trend continues, but we hope to see many more cards drawn by Huerta. Gantu is by far the flashiest reveal as of late, but there has also been plenty of interesting utility and great design space that we have yet to dive into, so let's go over those. On March 2nd, Lorcana graced us with the latest reveal, White Rabbit's Pocket Watch. This is a 3 cost item with the ability, I'm late, with the cost of exerting itself and paying 1 resource. This item can give a chosen character Rush for the duration of the turn. Rush is a keyword that allows a character to challenge on the same turn that it is played. This confirms the classic trading card game mechanic called Summoning Sickness, or as I will call it, ink drying. This mechanic is normally implemented as a way of balancing the game so that a player must wait a full turn cycle before challenging or using the abilities of cards that they play on that turn. On-placement abilities will not be affected by this. With another mechanic revealed, we are closer to understanding the current card pool in context of the actual game. Cards like Maleficent, which is the highest rarity, legendary, are starting to make greater sense as we see the estimated power level of the first set. An on-place ability that removes a card and requires your opponent to answer a big body without the use of attacking as soon as their character is placed is largely beneficial. While cards with effects that activate while challenging become harder to use because they have to stick around a whole turn to use the ability. Looking at you, Hook. I do love the addition of this mechanic in item form like this. A question I do have though, is if we will ever get any cards that would be able to remove or negate the abilities of opponent's items. Rush is a powerful mechanic, and if the opponent is able to activate this card early and you have no answer, they could be able to sneak out a win from nowhere. I'm glad you have to exert the item though, which appears that you only get 1 use of it per turn. I'm very excited to see what they do with this in the future. On February 21st, the official Lorcana Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook accounts sent out a message to the community, asking for their help to decide what kind of card to reveal next, hero, villain, or ally. 2 days later, the community was rocked with information, as they decided to reveal one of each. Enter Aladdin, Scar, and the Wardrobe. Each of these 3 cards have some interesting implications on Lorcana, so let's get into them. The first reveal came from Twitter, Scar Mastermind. This is a 6 cost villain, with 5 attack and 4 defense, an unknown amount of lore. He also has the ability Insidious Plot. This is an on-place ability that allows you to choose another character and give it -5 attack for this turn. Another mechanic spoiled by the card ability. This seems to illustrate that during challenges between 2 characters, damage is done to both characters instead of just the defending character. For example, if Captain Hook challenges Olaf, Hook will deal 3 damage to Olaf, who would then be left at 0 health and banished. However, Olaf will deal 1 damage to Hook as well, which will leave Hook with 1 health. This scenario is still just a working speculation of how combat will play out, but considering that we know that damage is cumulative based on Healing Glow, and Scar has an effect that reduces power, it seems like this is the most likely outcome. Combat retaliation is another common mechanic in trading card games, and introducing an effect like Scar this early means that there will be many tactical ways to approach combat between 2 characters. I'm loving the depth that Ravensburger is showing with the gameplay already. The second reveal was shown off on Lorcana's Facebook social media page. Aladdin, Prince Ali, is a 2 cost hero with 2 attack and 2 defense with an unknown amount of lore. He also has the ability Ward, which protects himself from targeted effects from the opponent. We previously saw this ability on the hero card Aurora, who gives ward to all other characters you control. Very interesting that they are giving out effects like ward to cards this early. There are already a bunch of targeting effects revealed to us though, so it's nice to have ways to plan and build around specific cards. I would not be surprised at all if this becomes a staple card in the future, if not immediately. Now, it's time for something that I really enjoy. Math. With the latest vanilla card reveal, the Wardrobe, a 3-cost, 3-attack, 4-defense amethyst ally with an unknown amount of lore, we have enough examples to attempt to calculate a base value of the stars that we believe to be lore, as well as to come up with a base value of the 3 vanillas to compare against each other, as well as against other cards with abilities. Let's start with the previously revealed Olaf and Jumba. For the sake of argument, we are going to assume that Olaf has 1 lore. The first thing we're going to do is add up the total stats, attack and defense, into one number and then downscale Jumba into a 1-cost based off the stat number. We are doing this so we can express Jumba's stats in the same cost value as Olaf. Now we see that Jumba is a 1-cost with 1.8 stats and 2 lore compared to Olaf with 4 stats and 1 lore. With this information, we can set up an algebraic equation with the stats of Olaf and Jumba in an attempt to find the missing value of the lore stars. We start the equation with 1.8 plus 2 lore equals 4 plus 1 lore, with Jumba on one side and Olaf on the other. We want the variable of lore to only be on one side, so we will subtract the 1 lore from both sides of the equation, which will leave us with 1.8 plus 1 lore equals 4. From here, all we need to do is subtract the 1.8 from both sides, so that on the left side we are only left with the variable we are looking to find. After this step, we are left with our answer of 1 lore equals 2.2 stats. Now that we know that 1 lore is equal to 2.2 stats, let's take a look at the Wardrobe again. Let's convert the Wardrobe to a 1-cost in the same way that we converted Jumba. Now, she's a 1-cost with 2.3 stats. Finally, we can add the lore to the total stat number on all 3 of these cards to get the converted base stat total of all 3. We are able to do this because we calculated the value of lore in terms of the stats. We want to express it this way because it's easier to express each card in 1 value instead of 2. Because we used Olaf and Jumba to calculate the lore value, the converted base stat total of these 2 will be the same at 6.2 for 1 cost. Now, if we take a look at the Wardrobe, we can check to see what her base stat total would be if we started to add lore. With 1 lore, she would have a converted base stat total of 4.5 stats. With 2 lore, she would have a total of 6.7. What does it mean that none of these numbers match Olaf and Jumba? I have 2 theories. First, Ravensburger is calculating the base stats of these cards by not valuing the attack and defense equally. The second theory, different colors are meant to have different base stat totals on vanillas. So why does this matter? Once we are able to figure out how Ravensburger calculates the base stat totals of vanilla cards as well as lore, it gives us a good baseline to evaluate cards with effects and the effects themselves. A good example of this is Maleficent and Dragonfire. You have 2 cards that do the same thing, but one of them stays on field while the other is an action card that can only be used once. If we are able to determine the base value of the stats/lore, we can look at these 2 cards with a fresh mindset that can help us determine how good Maleficent is, as well as the cards in the future with similar abilities. This is about as far as we can go at the moment, although the second we get confirmation of the number of lore on both Olaf and the Wardrobe, we can revisit this topic in the future. That's all for today's news roundup. We're getting dangerously close to spring, so keep your eyes peeled for more informational videos about how to play the game and more in-depth concepts coming soon. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be safe, and we'll see you next time back at the Traverse Tavern.